together eventually. Excuse me for the issues. Yikes. Back to normal things. That might have been the weirdest set of things ever. But we're back in it together and finally going. I've got Make-A-Wish Gaming and Bitcoin Miners. And apparently the music is feeling itself today. Okay. There we go. It's a little bit more reasonable with our time. I don't need to be hearing the music blasting, but a little bit in the background is nothing wrong with that.
Attackers need to locate and defuse as many people as they can.
Lord. Every issue in the book today. CJX has been perilous this past few weeks, man. I love the game, but like, it's astonishing how you can screw so many damn things up at one time. But there we are. Good lord. My keyboard wasn't working either. We're just the four horsemen of everything not working. Audio, video, controllers, and I don't know, mental? Whole mess within itself, but nothing really unexpected sometimes. It really is just that. A mess. But there's beauty in the weird, odd things. Got Make-A-Wish Gaming, Bitcoin Miners, 2 unknown teams. Braggs grabs the first one. Maybe a little bit of an odd start in my opinion. Normally don't see a kill go that early, but nothing wrong with an early entry. And Make-A-Wish obviously can feel a little bit more safe with double shields or Aurora. Plan probably looking towards some crazy idea. Someone check Doobie though. Either one man that loves his semi-auto firing and pulling that trigger occasionally, or hey, there we go. Had me scared for a second we had a strike pack in the midst. That is not true. Be very careful about the actual players in though. Netflix, I'm very aware of the odd names. Doobie is obviously sitting in this corner here. He's gonna need a bigger issues because if he goes on drone, you could easily catch 1 or 2 kills. You do see Morphe fall back there. Played safe by the hard angles. Grabs that blitz, which out of all ops, you see 2 shields down early. The worst to go first, and run that started pretty disadvantaged for Bitcoin Miners. Came just right back to their advantage. Little bit of particular play. Wow, okay. Opt to just go full in on the Grim. All or nothing, because apparently no one else can do their job. But when in doubt, trust your flex player. Not enough. Morphe finishes Braggs, and with 2v2 you have one man who is very much AFK, and Insignia, the captain of this team. I can't say it. I can never say his name right. Rest in peace, because I know it should be simple. C4 goes out, bit of a miss. Obviously, you're just going to see Jaeger and a bit of a jiggle board here because they don't really need to swing. All they need to do is play their trades. Maybe the ghost element of one possible player hiding somewhere could be big, but you'll never know. One AFK player, 30 seconds of winding down, and maybe a good angle. It's really just time is the issue. You have one man alive, so getting pulled across in the plant, and I think they know that. It's going to come down to this very odd and annoying way of playing where you're going to spam your DMR, hope for something, but time's just going to keep winding down on you. 10 seconds left, hoping for a miracle, but I don't think he'll be given one. This probably should be the end here as time's just going to wind right down, and the game that could have been won comes down to an AFK player. And despite starting with that disadvantage, you still see Bitcoin Miners clean it up. I think they came down more to the absolute player of Netflix, just going AFK first round. Well, they didn't ask for a pause, and even if they did, it isn't really within what they should be doing. But one round in, it's not like everything's over quite yet. Time for comebacks. Time for a little bit, you know, nothing set in stone this early on. However, obviously a great start for Braggs. Can't do much better than 3 kills to start it off. A triple. Obviously at Insignia, grabbing at least 1 to start it off, but
Defenders, protect your
you are
bombs
going to need your
from being
teammates
defused
just
by
kind of put in
attackers.
a bigger effort, and still the AFK man. Or everyone is. 1 drone moves in, but apparently the sluggish droning is not really, I guess, uncommon for a team like Make-A-Wish Gaming early on, but early round stuff can very much change, and apparently with 2 emergency subs, it doesn't entirely not feel unfitful. You do finally see Netflix. God, that is weird to say. He is back. We actually have a full 5 that I think is here. But we'll see how we can have a comeback here. Because
Attackers must
obviously you're
locate
seeing quite a bit of
and
good
defuse the
extensions.
bomb.
You're going to see Doobie probably sitting on a frost shield near near VIP Christmas area. And it's such a great position to hold, especially when you have so much pressure like this, because it's nearly impossible to clear. As long as you have someone watching on cross, the world is your oyster, and you essentially have a very, very strong bastion to hold. To the first floor as drone go out, just getting rid of that early entry utility. Trying to clear a little bit of space, maybe get some intel, but a drone shot, you certainly know where he is. All you have to do is not throw bodies here. Monty's really just going to use his shield, keep getting himself some intel. C4 goes out. Doesn't get anyone, really. Damage on the Monty's great, but you're going to need a lot more to really finish him off here, and he can just jiggle himself into better spots, more space, and let his team do his job. Early kill, 2 from Took, and could have been a great start taken apart by 1 singular bandit. See even more pressure coming towards him. Bakery has sort of just become the spot where everyone knows it's coming. You see a lot of the players over here. Obviously you have 1 player small big, but that's never been the issue.
Attackers drop the diffuser.
Might be able to catch something, but a down man and down to just sanctuaries. You're gonna need to find something special. A little bit of fairy dust on the round, but odds are this one might be cleaned up pretty early, as Bitcoin Miners taking about a great as a start you could ask for. A flawless round in the second. With the Doobie finishes, so far been some dominance. Obviously with 2 emergency subs in, you're not really going to expect the peak game of any team, but I'd expect a little bit more than this, to be fair. But that is how it is sometimes. Nothing super crazy that has happened, but it's just, it feels like there isn't anything coming from the side of Make-A-Wish Gaming. There isn't really any of that fight. Yeah, Braggs obviously putting up good numbers and does what feels he's being the essential part of the team right now, but you need more than 1 player that can play all the roles. Can't let it down to 1, and I think we're going to see that long term, is you got to see more.
Attackers need to locate and defuse bombs.
Maybe a show of dominance, or maybe they see this team is weak enough that they'll fall for it, but they do bring in the Caveira, and well, a Rat Realm isn't particularly going to work well. The lone drone and buck very well may have caught something here, and could be the plan is see if they can get this early isolation pick, grab their top frag. Could be a great start, but you do got to be very careful. You have a blitz, you can easily send that in, clear him out, but you just got to make sure you don't see any bodies thrown early. It is that first, or is the second floor site, so you're going to want to always see the split play,
5 seconds.
and it's really just where do you pick first. You're going to have to take one or the other, and you're going to have to take it almost full-handedly for it to work. Generally see upstairs, but downstairs isn't unheard of either. Caveira runs away with the drone being spotted, and just a bare question of, is the roam really going to be held too aggressively? Apparently goes from 1 rat spot to another, though. Sitting in that cigar area is not exactly unheard of, but certainly a little questionable, because 1 good drone, or God forbid the blitz shield runs in, and your life is forfeited pretty quickly. And a little bit of fun and antics isn't always hated, especially in a game like this. But sadly, siege textures are going to screw you up, as that foot is spotted through the annoying wall, and the rat room kind of gets itself run right back. Certain corner. No names being named. One from Tuck, one from Likes. Folks, excuse me, and well, great start with obviously quite a few bodies. Morphe and Took take another, and looked like a great progression, and then everything fell apart there as one on drone person kind of just took it all down, and going down 3-0 is exactly what you'd hope for. Now you're just playing Band-Aid mode for Make-Wish, trying to crouch just maybe one round, possibly two here, and just make it a little bit more winnable. Have a little bit more to work with, but you can never truly know for sure. Obviously, your last band comes out, so you have a little bit more you can stop. I don't think there's anything that's really pinpoint here. I think it's more an entire whole as a team. We're just not seeing what you need to from the players. You're not seeing the, aggression or any real, star power from a lot of your players. You're seeing most of them being 1 and 2. That isn't enough. You need to see some more fight. Generally, your bottom frags here of Majins and Netflix would be at least a little bit up there. Netflix generally playing a more flex-supported role, but still, you expect to see something on the board at least, and so far there's just nothing to even put your hat on. You're not getting what you need, and you're not really excelling in any major area here, and it's a big issue. We see it on the side of Bitcoin. We see that they're able to hit these rat plays and sort of force time and drones be spent at them. We also saw that they were able to use those drones to get some free kills. We're seeing Morphe, who's easily one of the best traders, all 3 of his kills being refragged, so he keeps those games close. We're just not seeing the same from them. Some players aren't putting up what I think they need to, and I think it's a bigger issue. You can obviously have one-man armies, but you still need to have everyone else able to participate here. So far, most of the players on Make-A-Wish couldn't even earn that. However, with a Valkyrie and a C4 below, could always be a fun little way of doing something.
Attackers must locate.
Site setup-wise, nothing really out of the blue. You see a pretty basic hold. Bit of an on Goyo there on white, but other than that, everything else is relatively normal. No DP shield in an Oso certainly called corner. It's just pretty basic so far. Nothing really, to, I think, astonish anyone. I think they're fine with that. They're fine with playing this more just normal style of game. Finally, though, we see a little bit more fight. Majins, let's say phonetically say his name, gets that first one on the board. Definitely necessary, and it gives you a little bit more wiggle room here because it finally feels like you have something to hang your hat on. You have the first kill here. You have a little more space you can use. Those stairs obviously have quite a bit more pressure, and it maybe is not the end-all be-all here, but no real player took the go here. You could probably go for the rappel, and you might be able to catch out someone, but all it takes is one person sitting behind the counter here, and suddenly your position is not so safe as the buck just gets you from below. Or drones kind of stopping everything. Misses both the impacts. Morphe grabs one, though. Majins down below is just trying to find something here. He didn't finish that Goyo. He got one shotgun shot, so obviously a little bit under half health, but you need more here. You really need to try to get the refrag here if possible. So close. He's just looking for that positioning. He's so low. Netflix grabs one. Could be the man of the hour here to catch quite a few. Gets one low, but you need to see something more. Down to one man on the rappel. One's just sitting down below. You see Sanctuaries grab at least something there. Bring it back to the 2v2. Keep the numbers close. Goyo's not anywhere near as low anymore because you got him with that dock stem. Because he feels safer. Whiff shots from both sides, essentially. A little bit of damage onto Buck, but I don't think Monkin is really going to be worried about it. Locked and loaded, however, feels, I think, very safe in this position where he can constantly just play on this vert and probably get a kill below if he's lucky. Time's going to wind down here, and you need to find something to, get here. A pick, in this case, a fatal failure as you give up. It was essentially your end-all be-all there. locked and loaded finishes with maybe a little bit of a close of a gunfight, but Tower just doesn't really feel like Make-A-Wish is there. Even on that round, they gave up such an important pick because they couldn't drone. They couldn't drone the Frostmat, and it's going to cost you arguably the entirety of the round. You need to get something on the board here if you really want to win or even have a chance of going to overtime. It's not certainly impossible. We've seen both these teams come back from bigger games, and a week 2 of a regular season isn't the worst, but there's just more you need to see. That's certainly the questionable part, I think, is can they really show that? Can they show that they even have the ability to go that far and come back from a game that's been this aggressively one-sided?
Attackers need to locate.
Can and will happens are two very different things, but always open for leaving that upside open, no matter how thin the odds may be. You do at least see a little bit more work as players are starting to get on the board. Maybe a little bit sluggish at a start. You'd certainly hope for at least a round by now, but if you can get a 4-2 half here, it's not the end of the world, especially on a map that's can be as defender-sided as Cafe, where playing close shotguns and really using the Clash here, which has not been brought at all, but a good Clash player on Cafe is arguably one of the strongest things you can have. A lot of the top console teams almost always run it or ban it. I've observed a little bit less than 85% banning rate, so there's certainly been crazier ones, but they're definitely up there. Aggressive angle taken from Majins and dead. He gets punished for it. It just feels like there isn't really a full team here. It feels like the angle was being fake it. Wasn't a big plan. Really Scrap took with that buck, but at the end of the day, is it really going to be enough? They know where you're going to position for. However, 1 or 2 Clash, 1 or 2 lucky kills would have been something, but then you see your top right go down and your Ashe is entirely dead. The bodies kind of just close in here. You need to find something, dude. You need to see at least something to work with. This isn't enough. Tying it back up is certainly a help, but utility-wise, you're not exactly looking great either. Doobie has a great angle, and he can kind of just hold this power position because there's not anyone on another side yet. Run-out goes crazy, catches one, but shredded out immediately after. Probably one of the riskiest things you could have done. I think, at this point, I think it's just pure confidence from the side of Miners. They don't feel the need to really worry about this game anymore. That could certainly be a big, big loss for them, because it's not like the team hasn't certainly been amazing at times. It's just being down 4-0 isn't really enough. Catches one out, and see Insignia left in it 1v2 where have to go almost perfect here. Is the numbers don't really line up. Makes it a 1v1, so at least a chance for something to change. Maybe a little bit of fairy dust can be sprinkled onto this game. But you have to go for a pretty hard plan here, especially in 1v1. Getting damage certainly helps. 1v2 on the line, at least some chance of winning. Get cleaned up or finally Make-A-Wish get around on the board. Maybe it's slower than you'd hope. Got something there. Something you can work with. At least the bigger issue, though, is can you get some trades? So far, every player is pretty hard in the red here for trading out, and I think it's the bigger issue is you'll see that there's just no way you come back. Feels like the second that you go down bodies, it's almost always this claw to get it back instead of like a effortless trade that we've seen a lot from Bitcoin. Just isn't the same that it needs to be in a game like this.
Attackers need to locate and defuse as
Could
many
be poised
bombs
for
as
a
they
better
can.
second half. Make-A-Wish are an amazing defensive team on Cafe, but being down possibly 4 rounds here is not exactly a great outlook. 4-2 split is obviously what you'd hope for here, but I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see that. We saw a lone run out from Locked and Loaded here, and a very aggressive extension, and they have to just run away here. They have to just realize that they think they can hold that time and just slow them down enough for an execute. An execute's going to be nearly impossible. But I think they're right here. We have to see progression, really that same, just anything tight, close to a fight here from Make-A-Wish. If they can just slow them down with this constant trap use, could very well be the key to 5-1-1/2 and almost a guarantee of regulation. We're seeing a very aggressive setup over towards Bakery here. Not for the faint of heart, and I don't think that there's really going to be a lot of pressure there, as the second you see a drone or two on there, you're going to see Fenrir's, bandits, players playing over there. Christmas is a little bit more lucrative here, I think. And playing for the VIP area, you're just going to see more. First kill goes out, 1 and 6. Maybe hoping for something on the board, but instead, go down. You're going to lose that first kill. A pretty pivotal round, in my opinion. Obviously, you still have a timeout on the board, but most teams aren't exactly common at using it. Be more of an unexpected than expected if they decide to use it. All it takes, though, is one good Ash charge or one good held cross, and you could definitely catch out quite a few players here. I don't think this round, even with that one-player advantage, is really out of anyone's hands. Don't really know what the plan is here with Doobie here. Certainly an aggressive play. Yeah, don't really know what he was thinking, especially with the breach charge being placed in that sound cue, but you will catch at least a freebie there. The numbers go immediately back into even with no real sacrifice being wasted. Obviously, the smoke here is going to be the bigger issue because strong power position. All you have to do is not swing and almost guaranteed a great spot here. Got one down though, locked and loaded. One less gun you can have up in a situation like this. Sound like ever more likely to catch another one out to a 4v2. Sanctuaries could have been the defining grace that round, but instead we're going to go to a post plan here. Gonna have to play the protection here. Gonna have to play the long game. Morphe catches one, brings it back to 2v2, and damage is great here, but you're really looking for a big kill. Certainly found it. Insignia is upstairs. You need to get over there fast. A madman flank might have been a good idea, but
defenders have eyes on the diffuser.
Time should be enough. Should be able to get the plan out here. Go 1 and 5 half. Make-A-Wish's chances looking ever slimmer, and around that matters so much. There's at least some fight put up there, but I think the move to try to not hold the post line aggressively was the big issue. I think you're trying to give space to a team that is so willing to take it, it just never is going to work out. You need to be willing to just play it how it is. Just go for this aggressive post line where you're going to have to hold it like the defuse isn't even down. Because that's how aggressive the team is right now. And I think that not accepting that and letting it just run wild like this has been the big issue. You're not seeing your players show up and you're not seeing them really match the aggression. And you're going to see that every single time is if you can't even deal with the aggression or play it better with good passive plan making, it isn't going to matter. And Make-A-Wish could obviously clean it up and at least make a serviceable stat line for the team. And that's not out of the question, but in overtime is just, it's not likely here. A 1 in 5 half doesn't give you a lot to work with, and it should probably be over, besides maybe a miracle if we're lucky. It's console siege, so comebacks are never really out of the question, but Make-A-Wish Gaming is a strong cafe team, but they're not exactly one to, I think, win 5 straight here to bring it to overtime or have one of the greater comebacks in my 2.5 months of recent console casting. Tier 3 seems to generally have the cooler comebacks, but we can always hope that a little bit of fairy dust falls upon the round and maybe the game as well. I wouldn't be complaining. I don't think anyone would be entirely fair.
Attackers need to locate and defuse bombs.
Bit of a relatively standard top floor hold. You're not going to see the echo all too often. it is an alternative to deployable shield, so not the craziest spot, but otherwise a very standard hold. I generally don't like the dock up here is, I think, having at least something to work with. Maybe you bring a smoke, maybe a Goyo instead.
10 seconds left before insertion.
But it's neither here nor there. Not yet, at least. There's still quite a bit there to change. It wouldn't surprise me if there's a pretty good plan in place for at least some type of hold with these operators. You can obviously sit the mutant cigar shop if you want. That alone is really going to be the hard thing to clear. Focus a lot of resources elsewhere. Obviously, a better start with Make-Wish. Seeing the entry try go down so early is probably going to slow the aggression that we've seen Bitcoin miners thrive at least on, and obviously a little bit better. Netflix obviously catching two quick. Not really, I think, the man that was expected to grab a couple, but you're in a great position here to go for something. Finds another 5v1, and at least looks like there could be a bit of a second wind here for the team, as what would have been, I think, a very, very poor showing. At least looks a little better. The box scores might not show it, but a flawless round means I don't think Make-Wish is barely out of this game quite yet. Still got a little bit more left in that tank, a little bit more to show. Maybe that means in overtime if we're lucky, but even if we can see a good fight put up in regulation, I don't think anyone would complain too much. Obviously, now you're going to have to go down to that first floor, which is, for quite a few, the weaker site, but statistically for me, I'm seeing Make-Wish have it as their strongest site on this map, so despite the, I guess, difference in regularity here between how good their sites are, I think it's going to be a pretty close round here at minimum. We generally see quite a few of these players are better defensively sided, except, out of all people, in Sydney.
Attackers need to locate.
Not really the player you expect, but generally has a higher cost and survival percentage on the attack. I think for both teams, though, I think the real just defining point of this entire game is just going to be the aggression. If you can show better than your opponent, you're going to win. It's a game of who can ego each other better, and in this case, it's very much important because I don't think either of these teams are. Some of them might be good at analytics, understanding the round of players, but I don't think it's good enough to really change that. Change the underlying feeling of aggression that has to be shown. If you don't show it, you're going to have bigger issues here, I think.
Attackers are moving to defuse a bomb.
But there's only so much of a story the numbers can tell. We've always seen second wins from players, irregularities that don't make sense, and I can spout all about how it's not likely that you see a comeback. That wouldn't make sense, but sometimes the irregular happens, and we get to see an amazing little moment. See Braggs and Tachanka with arguably one of the more odd picks of the day so far. Seen both sides pick the oddballs here. See the Caveira. See the Tachanka. All we need to complete the trifecta is like an alibi, and I think that we're going to have a very humorous game, in my opinion. We've heard the fire does work amazing here for stalling it out, but it's really just, is it worth the entirety of your operator? Because they can always come above. They can always go somewhere else, and I don't think Took are really thinking about that, but it might be a smart decision here to just kind of keep firing it off and maybe delay it for a little bit longer if you can. Fire him while he places it. A miss from the fire, what could have been amazing damage. Top speed for nothing, which, unfortunate bounce right there. But you have all the fire in the world, you could probably catch someone out. Netflix upstairs catches that Morphe. Getting the thermite out after the breach is taken isn't really the biggest win, but a body's a body, and being a top regular soldier is definitely, I think, a surprise for the generally flex player. Doobie catches one. Obviously, first round of the half for him on Ash wasn't great. Going out first is never really his style, but catches one instead. Sydney taking another. In the 4v3 where it's really just going to be down to who's going to get cleared first. You have Fireplace Hall being held upstairs by Nep, and you're going to have Doobie. Obviously, both are relatively low here, so could be a 1 and 2 bullet decision where even a lucky pre-fire could really change the course of the game. I think having everyone so low is going to be the bigger issue, but crazy, I'd argue, roam upstairs. And with most of your players being close to this upstairs, I'd argue that at least this round is going to be locked up for Make-A-Wish Gaming to have something to work with. Certainly going to have to deal with a very, very dangerous shotgun. Maybe you see a low headshot. Not tonight, though. Down to a 1v4. Locked and Loaded could certainly go for something cool here, and I'd argue end this round on arguably a guaranteed win, just as a team and mentally. But I think we're going to see that shotgun come in once again as very dominant half so far for me. At least try to pull it back together. Bad starts aside, it's about as great as you can ask for, as it's just been, it looks like good vibes and quite a bit to work from. The numbers at least are looking like a little bit less of a car crash and a little bit more, you know, usable and lookable. Nep is certainly not playing the numbers I think he needs to, but 0-1 entries is the worst thing I've seen. 0-4s, 0-5s, and it seems that the defense is kind of traded. It feels like it's dominated by, well, 2 players and a love for your shot. They might not certainly have the most value. They might not have the most kills. A lot of the pivotal moments in every single round seems to be decided by the mans with those shotguns. Maybe SAS is the secret to this game. Not what I think the intention was with Make-A-Wish Gaming, as is generally a very anti-shotgun team with one of the lower use rates of shotguns outside of margins on most SAS operators. Seen Sanctuaries touch it. Seen a couple other players at least experiment with it, and maybe that's a little new difference here that's going to make the big one. Obviously, what looked to be an atrocious half is at least looking a little bit better. Two-round differential is certainly not the worst, but problem is you're in your head to an ever closer match point, and even if you go up 5-4, and, you know, we see the defense get, you know, 1 round loss, that's scary because you still have to win 2 more rounds just to go to overtime. Well, a game ending in regulation here for would probably be a miracle if it went their way, but you got to be perfect here. You can't even afford to give up one. I was gonna say one player, and then immediately after, Netflix immediately decides to, hey, don't worry, we'll take one instead. With no real fight, quite a few players above. Brags grabs another. Doobie probably could have had something there, but I think late shots from him really just stopped it. And now Brags can probably just sink there if he wants. Did the opposite swing and goes for it. Madman grabs another. Triple for the round. Maybe he can catch a very desperate quad here. Does not happen. Morphe left in a 1v4 with everyone closing around him. Should be a done deal here. Super layer. Not an easy one to win. Bodies are all being thrown at him, and that finishes. Gets the first and last. Suddenly a team that looked like it was just an unstoppable battering ram is turned into at least a pitiful force, I'd argue. Where their numbers aren't what they need to be. They're not trading like they were before, except for Morph, which +9 on the trade differential, 89% cost. I'd rarely say that there's an issue of backpacking and that everyone else needs to help, but this is ridiculous. And somehow all of his kills are refrags, so I've never seen a bigger team player, and for once I'm fine with the 0-2 on entry. Because you're trading perfectly, you're getting your refrags literally perfectly. I mean, who can complain? You see the thermite and the mute go off. No real surprise. The shotgun does seem to be a little bit more dangerous than I think they expected. Which is obviously, I think, a bit of a shocker here. Is we don't normally see the shotguns too much. And it works this time around. Approaching maybe a fun overtime here, which, if I'm not mistaken, we are actually having infinite overtime because I forgot to change the settings and... Well, I'm not sure the teams are really going to hate it or like it, but I think if we get to see a comeback go to infinite overtime, I'd gladly spend my night casting that for a little bit. I'd do that. Overtime's always the fun and joy of the game, I'd argue. Especially infinite overtimes and like playoffs and finals. There's not much more that makes me want to cast a game.
Bomb located by attackers.
And these teams might not exactly be the super teams, the 5.2 PFAs of the world, but I think they still got quite a bit of fight. Bitcoin miners obviously looking a little bit diminished after what feels to be a bad half. You never know. I don't try to count any team out because console all it takes is one good player
Attackers are heading out to
or
defuse the
Morphe
bomb.
deciding to just go off again because that works too. Being a bit of a, I'd argue, backpack performance for Brags and Morphe is those two generally putting up the work while playing, I'd argue, team-oriented ops here. Maybe not the craziest team-oriented, but still more than you'd expect for their kill differential. Freebie, it looks to feel, from Netflix and his aggression. Getting some early rounds, I think, got in his own head. And probably one of the worst situations. Ever so close to tying it back up, but losing a body early on is certainly not the great way to start it. Well, we obviously know where the push is coming from. It's really just a matter of when and how much droning we're going to do. And how much is this shotgun once again going to matter, because we got rid of the mute. Great. Folks. This is a game that you're down 3 straight. You just TK'd right before tying it out. Well, you can never take the toxicity out of a console player, I suppose. Great echo cam on Kelly Fair. He gets the spots, the pings, and at least knows where the pressure is coming from to some degree. Locked and loaded. I don't know what his plan was. I think he's just sort of looking for maybe a freebie on the window, but I think it's going to be sadly a little set. No catches one out, locked and loaded. Gets a good trade though. After Fair goes out. Nature is literally the worst person alive that you could have had it for. Opts to run back, but if he really wanted to, he could just stand there and dock himself out. Bit of a tag. Doobie on the window catches it. Bit of an odd start. Make-A-Wish down to 1 man. Earring ever so close to that match point. I think Miracle here would very much be 1v2 and a bit of a whiff from both sides. Leaves it to at least a little bit of a chance. Still have Morphe with the diffuser, and with that going down, the odds are certainly lower. One good ping could change that, but
Attackers activating diffuser.
I'm going to see run upstairs, and the lock-in could go right here for the change. One good flash is going to make it a lot harder. Locked and loaded Sig in one corner, Morphe in another, and you essentially have to play perfect trades here. Because neither one is really going to expose themselves. You got to be able to bait a person out here. Time running lower, 20 seconds on the clock, hoping for something here. But the question is likeliness. Odds are it's not, and the trade makes it a little bit better on the scoreboard for Brags, but it has officially just been a bit of a shit show. Bitcoin miners finally get around on the board after what has been a miserable half, but still a little bit of time to save grace here and at least finish out in regulation. However, the entries on this game have been so one-sided, it is certainly questionable. You don't normally see the side that is losing in rounds also be more positive in entries. So far, we're seeing a whopping... Okay, 3 and 7 on entries. Sometimes there are teams that are struggling, and then there's whatever this is. You know, yeah, sometimes that first kill really isn't going your way. But I suppose they're up 6-4 match point, and what would certainly be an ugly finish in regulation, but in regulation nonetheless, so looks a little bit better with round differentials, and at least you're not getting that overtime. Don't really know what the player's plan is for Sanctuaries.
Attackers are moving to defuse a bomb.
You have a Scopos, and what could have a little bit of fun here if you're lucky, but I think he's going to play this very safe here, just kind of hoping for maybe a little bit of luck on his side. Fun little shot going out wouldn't exactly be the end of the world, though. Good spotted. I've seen it, but that's a very hard shot to hit. One that we will not see done, and Doobie grabs the first. Getting the cutoff on the Scopos. Probably one of the smarter moves I've seen quite a bit. Well, we have the Tachanka with the ACOG. The worst gun in the world. Certainly don't see it commonly as... Nowadays, I'd argue the LMG is a little bit better. I like ACOG as much as the next guy. Damage LMG is one of the more ridiculous guns I've seen. It pre-fires like nobody else. Don't know 4v4, everything could be close, but Netflix, excuse me, goes for the aggressive swing and caught out at probably one of the worst times he could have been. Numbers come close, it should be 1v4 and be a generational play here. Bitcoin finally clean it up. Bad start. At least a good finish. That'd be out.